Hello everyone, my name is Zard and welcome back to another video, and today I'll be talking about episode 6 of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. So I finished the episode about an hour or two ago, and I really enjoyed this episode. It might be my favorite episode of the show, it probably is. Just give me an hour, 40 minutes of, or like in 40 minutes to an hour of orcs getting killed, and I'll be happy. And this episode had that, but it also had a lot more. And I was surprised that I enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and I believe it's probably my favorite episode, because my favorite part of the show is Durin and Elrond, and none of that was in this episode. From the preview for the 7th episode, they will be in that episode, as well as the story from this episode, which totally makes sense. You couldn't really end it as this episode did without continuing it into the next episode. But my least favorite part of this series, which I've discussed in these thoughts videos, is the Bronwyn, Arondir, Theo. That story of, I would say, the 4 stories is my least favorite part of the show. But this episode, which I'll consider my favorite episode, had those. It combined that story along with the Númenórean stuff, and I really enjoyed this episode. One thing that this episode did was, I feel like in some parts really made me feel uncomfortable, which, I don't think was a bad thing, because it really made me feel like I was in the show almost, because I felt uncomfortable seeing Arondir when he was battling that big orc, which just, the fighting in this episode is great, but when he was fighting that big orc and he had stabbed it in the eye, and then he pulled it out and he had the blood gushing all over his face, and the big orc now had that, whatever it was, dagger, piece of rubble, whatever it might have been, and he was about to stab Arondir in the eye. I was feeling that, and to be feeling like you were almost in the show was very cool, because I feel like I hadn't felt that in the previous 5 episodes, even though I had enjoyed those episodes. I hadn't felt that, whereas I feel like while watching Lord of the Rings, as well as most of The Hobbit, most Lord of the Rings too, I will say, The Fellowship, I enjoy a lot, but I will say it's my least favorite of the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, so I feel less there, but the other 2 totally in the whole zone the entire time. Another time throughout the show, when the Sutherlands, the ones, Arondir, Theo, Bronwyn, all those ones, after they had finished off the orcs and noticed that they were actually battling, I'm assuming the Sutherlands that went with completely forget blanking on his name, the guy who seems to own that bar, who had a big part at the end unlocking that key, or using that key in the stone, and completely forgot where I was going with this, but when they had fought with the other Sutherlands, and then the actual, well, there was some orcs there, but more orcs, and they started shooting in their arrows, and everyone was getting shot by arrows, and then you get Bronwyn shot by it, and then they have to remove that arrow. There was a lot of blood in this episode. Now, a lot of that blood that you saw was in the dark, so it's not like as like in the forefront of the show. Like, you don't see all the red darkness of it all over the characters, but there was a lot of blood in this episode, which really reminded me of the Battle of the Five Armies Extended Edition, where you have that battle, and there's added scenes where you've got the dwarves just going right through the orcs, taking off their heads, and it's absolutely great. I love that extended edition because of that, and I believe that, I'm pretty sure that extended edition is rated R, just for that scene. So I don't know, I enjoy seeing orcs get their heads chopped off, or getting their limbs chopped off, or getting stabbed in the eye. Yeah, I enjoyed this episode. I did. Um, Adar, they caught him, but he ended up escaping. We also saw the beginnings of Mount Doom and Mordor, which, given the location of the Sutherlands and seeing the map, it for sure seemed like that's how it would turn out, but I honestly didn't think we'd see all this right away. Um, but I guess we're nearing the end of the first season. I believe there's 8 episodes, so this was 6, so only 2 left. So I'll just go and talk about those next 2 episodes in a bit. But back to this episode, the horse riding with Numenor, Galadriel, Hellbrand, and all that was great. I really loved some of the movements of, especially when the Numenorians came in on their horses. They had split up a bit and had a chain, and they just ran down a bunch of orcs. I really wish those chains were sharper, and we just saw the orc heads just get chopped off one by one. It would have been wonderful, and I would have loved to see that. Just blood splattered all over the camera. Would have been great, but hopefully another time, a big orc chopped off head moment, because I forget. I was thinking, I knew it was a Legolas moment, but I couldn't think if it was from Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, and I believe it's, once again, the Battle of the Five Armies Extended Edition, and I believe there's some sort of steps or up a mountain, and Legolas, I don't believe it's when he rides down the shield while he's, but I think it's in the Battle of the Five Armies. And, oh yes, I believe he is riding one of those large bat creatures, and he's hanging off it, and he has his sword, and he just goes right through them, and he chops off all their heads one by one, and that's all I wanted. Didn't get that. But there's still some other chopped off. Okay, I'm talking way too much about orcs being decapitated that I just need to stop talking about that. Another thing, Galadriel's move when she tips off the horse a bit to kill an orc. Once again, talking about orcs being killed. I enjoy it. That's really it. I like Hellbrand. I do. I really, in the last couple episodes, there's been moments when I look at him, especially last episode, I was watching it again yesterday, and it's when you first see him, when he's in his armor and on top of the horse. This is in the 5th episode. And I felt he just looked exactly like Elrond, or Aragorn. I felt he just totally looked like him. And again, in this episode, I felt that. I feel like he's going to end up being some sort of villainous character, which is disappointing because I really do like him and I want him to be a good guy. 'Cause, I would say in this universe, this is one of the few where I'm in with the good guys. I want them to win. I look at other universes and I like Maul, even though I will say he's sort of on the fence sometimes. I like Vader. I like Voldemort. I like a lot of these villainous characters, and I still am interested in the Nazgul, the orcs, Adar, Sauron. I really like these villainous characters in Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth, but I want the Fellowship to succeed. I want Frodo to toss the ring into Mount Doom, and in this case, again, I want Galadriel, I want Elrond, I guess Durin, he's a little bit, I can't 100% trust Durin, even though he's my favorite character of the show. I've really enjoyed this episode, and I'm excited for the next 2, so from the preview of the next one, we will see Durin as well as Elrond again, and they seem to be going back to Khazad-dûm. And I couldn't 100% tell what was going on in that preview. And then once you've got Nori and the Stranger in that storyline there, continuing next episode, and then the Numenorian and Sutherland's one as well, with Galadriel waking up and seeing all the red fire, which I believe was a shot we saw in the trailer. And it's, I believe, very similar to that one that was in the first episode. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what comes to the next 2 episodes of this show. I don't know if we're going to end with Sauron. That would be my guess. I'm assuming that from in the next 2 episodes, there's no way Numenor is going to fall. I feel like there's a lot to happen before that, so I'm guessing maybe in the 2nd season that happens. I guess the 3rd, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe this show is supposed to be 5 seasons, so I'm not 100% sure when they'd want to do the Fall of Numenor, but I don't believe that will be this season. And there's just not enough time, really, at all to do that. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. Now I'm going to just talk about Lego sets, because this is my first video I've really done that makes sense to talk about it. And Lord of the Rings returning as a Lego theme, not necessarily as a theme, but with 2 Brickhead sets. This is from Promo Bricks, about a Frodo and Gollum Brickhead set, as well as a Gandalf and Belrog Brickhead set, and then a potential D2C set. So those sound great. Brickheads isn't my favorite line, but I will be buying both of them, I believe, January 1st, because, well, they're Lord of the Rings sets, and any Lord of the Rings sets that I can buy, I will buy. Probably shouldn't have said that, because then they go and release some $1,000 Tower of Orthanc, and yeah, I'm really excited for Lord of the Rings to return. I'm hoping for playsets. I want to see updated minifigures. I love to see arm printing, side leg printing, so much of this stuff. So talking about this show and potential Lego sets feels less, like more of a possibility now this week than it did last week when I had no idea of this theme returning. So once again, I'd love to see a Numenorian ship. That horse shot when they're all lined up, all the Numenorians, and they're going towards the village. I wouldn't mind seeing that battle. Like, you could have a couple horses. On the horses, you'd probably want to have Isildur, Elendil, a hut. You could probably have some other characters. You'd want to have a Dar in there, Galadriel, I guess, as well, so maybe 3 horses if you want to do Hellbrand. You're looking at 4 horses. And then another Numenorian, you're looking at 5 horses. You want another 6 worth. I really, for a Lego set, I'd love to see some orcs as well as the Numenorian armor. I absolutely love that white and silver armor. I think it's one of my favorite armors that's been in the Lord of the Rings films, the Hobbit films, and now this Rings of Power series. I really love that armor. I wasn't too keen on some of the armor at the start of the show, like the elven armor we saw during the first stage. I felt I didn't love the flat or like just domed helmets. There wasn't much detailing going on with the helmets. I thought the armor itself was fine, but the helmets really were lacking, whereas these ones have amazing helmets and then really nice just armor. I think it looks great, and I'd love to see a Lego minifigure of that. Talking more of just Lord of the Rings as a whole, the Lego theme, and it returning. Wow, this is my longest one of this video. It's going on 15 minutes, so I want to slow this thing down or stop it soon. But talking about Lord of the Rings for the D2C, There's, I think, multiple options. One that sort of worries me as a potential, because I really see it as a potential set, is a buildable object set. And I think that buildable object sets are very interesting. The Harry Potter one that released, not this year, of course, because we had the Hogwarts Express, but I believe the year prior, where there you had the textbook, then you had a wand, multiple Wizarding World builds, Hedwig, in this set, and I'm worried that that could be a D2C set, where you get the One Ring, you get multiple other builds, whether it's the Red Book. Now, if it was, say, this was an ideas set a little while ago, it didn't get approved, maybe this is the reason as a theme returning. It was an absolutely beautiful set. I think it was, if it was just in a separate set, which I'd want for LEGO Ideas, where you have one LEGO Lord of the Rings set and say the theme never comes back, this was the set that I would have wanted. It had the Red Book, and on top of it was built Bag End, and you had the tree coming out, and you had a bit of writing on the book that was like the hole in the ground stuff. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. So if, say, it was a larger version of that with Bag End built on top of that, and then a One Ring build, I wouldn't mind that, not as much, but I don't know if they would do that. I don't know if they'd want to combine minifigure scale stuff with buildable objects into one set. So I would say buildable objects is an option that I'm worried is a possibility, just because I want some sort of minifigure set before they do that. I want Lord of the Rings minifigures and really cool playset builds, because I think the builds that they made for the theme when the Hobbit films were coming out, that's what, coming on probably for the 2012 ones, 10 years now, next year when these sets come out in 2023, that's 10 years for the 2013 sets. It's a long time ago, and the builds there were amazing, so I'm just very interested to see what is possible with new pieces, and I'm so excited for the potential of the theme returning for that D2C. Like I mentioned before, I think a Tower of Orthanc would be really cool. The last one was pretty great. I think it was like a $200 set, and it's huge. It's ridiculous how tall that thing is. It's huge, and I think it was a $200 set, and I believe you had Treebeard in that set, as well as Saruman. There was a lot of characters in that set, and I think some of them were exclusive too. I never had that set. I didn't really have them when it comes to my Lord of the Rings collecting. My biggest set would have been the set with Smaug in it, which I think was up there when it comes to bigger sets. Would have loved that Bag End set, and I wish I had gotten. I want to see that again. That's another one of my ideas would be to get a larger Shire. Now, minifigure-wise, that one probably would be less interesting as compared to something like if you had a big, whether it's sort of micro-scale or a bit above that, for something like Gondor, where you could get a bunch of orcs, you could get a ton of characters, where the Shire sort of limits it to who you can get. Of course, you can get all the dwarves if you want to base it off the Hobbit. You can have older Bilbo, younger Bilbo, Frodo, Sam, Pippin, Merry. There's a lot of characters, but it's sort of limited to, like, you really only have hobbits. You're not going to have anyone from the Fellowship. So I don't know. I'd love to see that as the D2C set, but I'm not 100% sure if it even will come. But I expect that these Lord of the Rings sets will sell well, and I wouldn't be surprised if, whether it's next year or the year after, that we get some sort of wave of play sets. And I must say, next year for LEGO is really shaping up to be a really good year. This video is over 20 minutes. Wow. Indiana Jones returning as a theme. Super excited for that. Lord of the Rings. Even though it's only brickheads, the potential of what we could get really excites me. Star Wars, 501st Battle Back, TIE Bomber, the display sets, the helmets, that Rex and Cody helmet. Super excited for those. Marvel. The mechs seem pretty good. I'm excited to get characters like Morbius. I think that's really cool. Ghost Rider as well. Sounds, the Quinjet, the Hulkbuster. There sounds like some good things for Marvel. DC, nothing except a Technic set. So hopefully there's some more stuff for that. Especially I'm hoping for that Flash set to actually come out that was rumored a while ago. And I'd really love to see a set for Black Adam as well as Shazam. But given that Black Adam's coming out and we have nothing about that, I don't know how likely that is. And I'm not even sure if Aquaman's coming out next year. And if it is, I wouldn't mind a small set or something for that as well. Other themes, Speed Champions. I love Speed Champions. I think the 8-wide stuff is amazing. So I'm really excited to see what, we have some rumors of what we are getting, but I'm excited to see what the other sets are. With Lord of the Rings, next year for LEGO seems really strong. I really enjoyed this episode of Lord of the Rings, and it seems like that seems to be the consensus, is that a lot of people enjoyed this episode, which I'm happy to see. I guess it's just nice seeing people enjoy stuff instead of being, like, naturally you want people to enjoy the stuff that I'd say you enjoy too, and I've enjoyed these last episodes, not as much as I've enjoyed this one, and not as much as I've enjoyed the Lord of the Rings or any of the Hobbit films. But I did really, really enjoy this episode, and I think this was the first one, even without my favorite character of this series, that stacks up for me with those 6 films. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.